I guess I'll call to order this meeting of the Greenfield Conservation Commission at 6:31 p.m. on June 11th, 2024. As you can see, all commission members are currently present. Since this meeting is being held virtually, if there's a technical interruption and the meeting ends suddenly, it will not be resumed tonight, and all items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting date, which is 2 weeks from today. And as you just heard, this meeting is being recorded by the Greenfield Conservation Commission. And if anyone else is recording the meeting, you are required to let me know. Hearing none, we will go to our first item of business, which is approval of minutes for May 28th, 2024.
I'll motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 28th, 2024.
Second.
Right. Motion to approve, seconded. Any other discussion? Kristen, looks like you have at least a comment in there about, I'll share this on my screen. Native plantings instead of seeds.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't remember. Did they say they were going to do anything other than seeding? I just
This
didn't want to like
one,
pick
yeah, this one was only seeding
Okay.
because they were talking about how it's like full of mountain laurel that was just gonna fill in anyway.
Yeah. So like native seed mix. I'm fine with that then. I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, that's what we said. Any other comments on the minutes? Oh,
I just double checked. It is not mapped as a Division of Fish and Wildlife cold water fisheries resource, but it is a perennial stream. And I don't know.
mhm.
I think I felt like we talked about that at the very end.
Do you think that should be in the minutes that has a perennial stream?
Maybe just because we talked about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a resource area under the State Wetlands Protection Act and also the ordinance, so it's relevant. And it's right at the frontage. So I think it's relevant.
Yeah. Mitch, do you think that'd be easy to add in there?
Yeah, that makes sense.
He did talk a lot about the stream.
Yeah, we did talk about the stream a lot. All right, any other comments? Not hearing any. We'll vote on approving the minutes with that minor change. Kristen,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Elizabeth.
Aye.
All right, and I'm also an aye, so the minutes are approved. All right, so tonight we don't have any public meetings or public hearings, but we do have a little bit of regulatory stuff. We have first a request for a certificate of compliance, 96 to 108 Deerfield Street, DEP file number 1680321. That's an interesting number. And I don't know, Mitch, do you, I know you made your little cheat sheet to kind of help us out with the history of this project. I don't know if you want to talk about it or if you want to I don't know, give a brief introduction and then maybe someone else can present about it.
Yeah, Sarah, I don't know if you want to start off, just kind of remind the commission what the project was. I can put up some design plans
2017.
as
I
well.
had to refresh myself pretty well also.
Yeah, well, before my time.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I told the people at the condo that it's definitely not unusual that this hasn't been tied up because I get calls all the time from people who are, selling or something like that. So these things do tend to linger until somebody notices they're still there. The project was a pretty tight little housing project. and all of the stormwater management was on the surface. We kind of ran it around until it got tired, so to speak. There are a series of little depressions. And the good news is they haven't had any issues after that first winter. The first winter, there was a lot of rain after the ground was frozen in the spring. And the contractor put a dry well in that little depression in the front yard. It was a concrete structure and he filled it with stone just to give the water a little help getting under the surface with a frozen ground. You can see in the letter I wrote, there are some pictures of the two depressions on the, which way is up? The south side? On the side closest to the river, there are two little basins where the water comes off the back of both of the separate buildings. And the area in the front, it ultimately runs around that property line on the east and discharges toward the river. So from what I can tell, and I believe, Travis, have you been there recently? But they haven't seen any erosion going toward the river. Things seem to infiltrate pretty well. And the only change was the addition of that underground structure. And I wanted to make sure they knew also because it is below the surface and they really didn't know it was there. So from what I don't want to, we're always pleased when these things work. You know, you do these crazy calculations and it's sort of magic, and it's really good to know that the project seems to be going well. The upkeep is pretty easy. It just gets mown because it's pretty flat. And there don't seem to have been problems over obviously several winters now. What are we, 7 years?
Great, thanks. Mitch, maybe if you could go back to the planting plan, or I don't know what to look at first, the planting plan or uh, the order of conditions. Because I know in the order of conditions, there was language about trees needing to be replaced, and then all the plantings on the property, um, they needed to survive, and then like a report needed to be submitted to the Conservation Commission if anything died, and then they needed to be replanted. And I don't believe we've received any reporting or anything like that on the survivorship of the plantings.
Yeah, I think this shows the planting. So I think it was
Yeah.
these that were supposed to be monitored. And Dorothy kind of walked me around, and there's nothing in writing. It seemed like most of them survived, but yeah, then not all of them. Then they weren't replaced.
They're
But
proposing more trees or taking out some more invasives. I'm not clear on what she said got them involved with the commission recently.
Yeah, there was another group had come to us about removing invasive plants and doing some native plantings there as well. Um, so yeah, I guess I wasn't sure how many of the trees did survive and how many were going to be planted by this other project. Like, does that work out to, to where it breaks even, or I don't know. I mean, I just know that was in our order of conditions, was specifying that those plantings needed to be replaced if they didn't make it.
yeah, I don't think they planted trees, but they did a lot of planting. They did like 76. And then that was to replace the invasives that were coming out. And then a few trees were cut down. I guess just by one of the residents who didn't know. So just to
Mm.
replace those, and then yeah.
Is this
So
for riverfront or BVW impacts?
this is for Riverfront.
Yeah,
And
This is on the Green River.
the
have you,
riverfront line goes almost up to that front corner. You can see a dashed line. It covers pretty much all the property.
Thank you. Did we require like annual reporting, in terms of like the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act and the city ordinance? That, did we
I know
receive?
there was a form attached to the drainage report. It was just a grid sheet that says, fill in here. I don't know anything. I don't know what happened since then because I haven't been.
Yeah,
able to look.
no, I mean more like if there's impact to a jurisdictional resource area and there's mitigation required, often we require reporting. So this says the first and second growing season. So there are performance standards under the state and local ordinances that require that be done by, like a wetland scientist, which doesn't look like we specifically called out. And there's a specific data form. Did we receive anything at all?
This was a complex project in that they did some mitigation on another site, which again, I wasn't involved in. Somebody said it was somewhat controversial. I don't know how that went because at that time, the applicant was the builder and the builder had control until the point when the units were sold. The individual who was directly involved is no longer with us. And I haven't been able to track down any more information from the construction company. I don't know if you have correspondence that related to the site over in Highland Park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we have some stuff on.
I guess kind of what I'm getting at, Travis,
Mhm.
is that, usually, say if it's BVW, the performance standard is 75% survival. If we didn't specify in the orders,
it does say all failed plantings shall be
so
replaced.
100%, okay, all right,
That's what it says.
thank you.
Yeah, and I mean that even makes it sound like I mean that makes it sound like all plantings, not just the trees. All new plantings on site. But that, shall be monitored for 2 growing seasons and all failed plantings shall be replaced. So that makes it sound like after 2 growing seasons, then whatever didn't survive after that, it wouldn't matter as much, but it would have to be replaced for at least two growing seasons.
Did we receive any reports?
I don't think
No.
so.
I
Okay,
don't think so. I think this might have changed hands and just this is something like I forgotten about, if I had to guess.
gotcha.
Hmm. Sarah, do you have any idea like how many of those original plants are currently surviving from the plantings on site?
I was really focusing on the stormwater because that's my area. That was the drainage side of it that I wrote the calculations for.
Hmm.
So, I mean, we could go count trees that look like they were the right size, but I'm not up on, species or anything like that.
It's gonna be tricky too if they're not tagged. I mean, how do you know what's a volunteer and what was intentionally installed?
Well, I think they've done a fair amount of work, people work in their little garden plots and stuff, so I don't, not necessarily shade trees, but they've definitely added planting since the contractor got out of the project.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and cutting down some trees, it sounds like too,
Mm.
unfortunately.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Dorothea.
Hi. When you're talking about which existing plants survived, are you talking about on the whole property?
Yeah, so I don't know, Mitch, would it be easy to go back to that planting plan? There was a planting plan with the original construction that showed the replacement of 12 trees that were cut down over at the bank, and then also all of the other plantings basically throughout the site. And yeah, on the right there, it shows the planting schedule for all the, how many of each of those were planted or should have been planted.
So, I would say, 99% of the plants that were planted around the homes are still here. Of the plants that were planted on the edge of the slope, there's only maybe 5 left from the original.
Can we get a
Did-
report stating that? Like, so this planting schedule, so there are 2 eastern red buds, 2 hawthorns, 3 flowering dogwoods, like this. Can we get a quantification of what was proposed and what is existing today?
Yeah, the ones you mentioned, I think, are all existing, but
If you could
Do they-
even take a copy of that, Dorothea, and just, color in the ones, because the bigger trees, I think, are what they're mostly concerned about, just to quantify. And the way it was written, as she said, it was supposed to be reported on after 2 years.
Every year for 2 years,
Yeah.
each year for 2 years.
So we don't know, how long certain things have been gone, but if you could quantify where you see those circles, just walk around and, color them yellow or something like that. I think that would give them what they're
Okay.
looking for.
okay.
And even like the other planting sites, just to have like pictures of them, just to see like, is it mostly, vegetated still, or, I think that would be
Other
very
what?
helpful.
What other planting site?
So like all the shrubs you see there,
Yeah, they're all here.
summer sweet,
They're all
service
here.
berry. Okay, yeah, that would be good for us to be able to see that, to confirm, I guess.
Okay, so I'll just, I have a copy of this map. I'll just color in what's existing.
I
Were
think
the-
it would be good to have a, like, see this table right here that's on the screen, Dorothea? If you could compare what's proposed and what's survived with
Okay.
a count of anything that failed, that would be helpful. Because then we would know, we can issue a certificate of compliance as long as you replace 2 whatever, or something like that.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
Were-
Okay,
Were there, are the things that aren't there, did they not survive, or were they, I forget what was cut down? Was that,
No,
were there
the-
any of those things cut down, or is that
no,
a different
the
area?
only things cut down were Norway maples.
Okay, so that was different. Okay.
Okay, if that sounds like a good plan, I think. But we could also look at, I believe there was an as-built plan submitted with the request for certificate of compliance.
Can I just ask a quick question about the replacement of the dead plantings?
Sure.
We've been removing some invasives back there, and we've allowed native trees to remain, including silver maples. There's a sassafras back there. There's a hickory. There's some good stuff coming in there. So we believe that there are enough trees back there, and we have been doing lots of plantings of shrubs, taller shrubs and lower shrubs. So what's the ratio of replacement? Like, if there was a tree that died, would, say, a bayberry be enough to replace that 1-to-1?
do you mean if you have either volunteers or incidental replacements, would that supplement the accidental failures?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, maybe if there have been volunteer trees that have come in, or looking at the plantings that we've put in the past couple of months. We put in a lot of shrubs back there. So does a shrub replace a tree that might have died? Or
I
does
would
a volunteer native tree replace one of the tree plantings that have died?
Hmm. I mean, I think it would be good to note where there are volunteer native plantings that aren't, that aren't the ones that were planted there because, I mean, the good thing about that is that they're already established compared to, a new planting that may or may not take. So, I mean, I think that would be helpful for us when, considering the certificate of compliance and whether more plantings were needed to replace um, you know, the habitat functions and everything like that of the trees that maybe didn't make it.
I agree with that. I think if you like, you lost, for example, a red maple, but a silver maple volunteered, I think that it comes out in the wash. If you planted a non-native shrub in replacement of a shade tree, maybe that won't. But I think it would just be helpful for us to see like a quantification of everything of the existing conditions, just do like a species inventory. And then, we can check it out. But I like where you're going with that. And I think that you're right. We don't need to be super hard nosed about, my personal opinion, we don't need to be super hard nosed about being strict to the table that was proposed. If you've got some good volunteers and they're a good swap, personally, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess going back to Sarah, for the as-built plan, it sounds like it looks like everything was pretty much built to plan, except you were talking about that stormwater feature.
Yeah, just that addition structurally.
Okay.
Is that outside of the riverfront area or, I'm sorry, I can't see.
Looks like it's right on the edge.
Oh,
Yeah, it looks like it's
Gotcha.
right inside.
So not our jurisdiction.
Well, and that was my guess as to where it sits. It's just in that low area in the front yard. If you'd like me to show it over the line, I could do that. Because it's bare, it was filled with stone and then it was grassed over or wood chips, I guess, in there.
Hmm.
So you GPS'd it or?
No, I have no idea where it is specifically because it's covered. There's not a lid on it, as far as I know.
Do any of the other commissioners have any questions or comments? Or, oh yeah, we can look at the site visit photos. That'd be good, Mitch. Oh,
Maybe not.
uh, I wonder if it's because it's that HEIC.
Yeah, usually it's okay with that.
Oh yeah, that is true. I'll see if I can get it to work on mine.
Yeah, because I was able to see them. So,
Um, Okay, yeah, I can. It works for me. So if you let me share, I can just go through
Yeah, go
them.
for it.
Maybe you can talk about them, or if any Dorothea or anyone could, knows exactly where this is on the plan and maybe fill us in.
This is by the slope, by the river. I think all the flags are just showing where they did some plantings.
Mhm.
So they did do a lot.
Advance to the next. Okay.
So yeah, same thing. They just showing where they did some plantings.
And these are more recent plantings, right? Or is this
Yeah, these are from a few weeks ago.
these are from the
2 weeks
RDA,
ago.
right?
Pardon? We've just planted these last month.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, all along that edge.
Smart of
there
you to
are-
flag them.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Me? I was just saying it's smart of you to flag them because it's very densely vegetated, so.
It's very
Mhm.
densely vegetated. We have to clear around them for them to survive.
I think Dorothea was just pointing out some of the trees that were planted from the plan,
Mm.
just based off of memory.
That's a silver and a silver.
Are they gonna be trimmed by the power company? For being close to the lines?
Possibly. They were there, the power company was there March, I can't remember, just earlier this year. And they did a lot of trimming.
That's something to think about, guys, like. You know. Did we know if that was a right of way?
I think there's like, we looked at this before. There's like the top of the slope and then it goes down and then there's like an old road bed or something and then it goes down again to the river. So I think the power lines are like behind, they're closer to the river.
Yeah, I think that's an access road for the sewer line back there along the side of the
Hmm.
river.
Oh, okay.
It's abandoned Mead Street. I've seen it on maps.
Okay. So these are some of those other plantings.
That's the front. This is the
Yeah.
basin that Sarah's working.
This is where the basin is, under that somewhere.
Yeah, that's the low spot, so it's not too far off the pavement. And as I say, it was filled up with rocks, so it isn't like a manhole that has a manhole cover on it.
Hmm.
It's just a concrete structure with holes in the side and then stone inside it, and then grassed over.
I think that's the last one.
Mitch,
Stop
I
sharing.
am I mixed up about your cheat sheet? It looks like the same Mass DEP file number. Something about an enforcement order?
Yeah, the
Um,
enforcement order got changed from the builder to the town.
Okay,
Yeah, so it was before, I
Right.
think Erica was the only one on the
I was
commission
there,
who's
yeah.
still here, but my understanding is that they had to do like a wetlands remediation project and they did it in Highland Park, like just in front of the parking lot, like along the stream there. And then they had a responsibility to monitor it for a certain number of years. And then they requested that the city be the ones who have to do the
Well,
monitoring. Is that
I
it?
think that shortly after they put some fill in there, we had a huge rainstorm and it all went into the stream. And so then there was the enforcement was to remove it, and that's where they kind of bailed. And said,
so I
So-
guess, does this applicant have any responsibility as part of this request for a COC related to that enforcement?
that was what I was wondering, can these be split or is this, yeah.
Well, I believe I was looking through the documents before this meeting, and it sounds like that enforcement order was the Conservation Commission voted to close out the enforcement order and
Okay,
then transfer responsibility of monitoring to and remediation to the city, which I guess it was because nothing was being done. And so like maybe the city would actually do it. Is that right, Erica?
Um,
I know it was a while ago. I know
I'm
that.
not, no, I know what happened. I'm just not sure how,
It says, I mean, it says
How-
the
how did
enforcement
they-
order was revoked.
how to diplomatically say it. Um,
The enforcement order was reissued to the city of Greenfield.
Yeah, so it sounds like for this certificate of compliance, that it basically doesn't matter anymore.
Okay.
That whole enforcement order thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. It's clear as mud.
Yeah, yeah. I think that enforcement order is still open.
That's
Against
what I'm
the
wondering.
city.
Can we issue a COC with an open enforcement order, or like, how does this?
Well, it's for the city. The city has the enforcement order. We closed out the enforcement order against them
Yeah.
and then opened one against the
Reopened it.
city. So their enforcement order is closed, and now there's only one enforcement order, and it's for the city, and
But
has
it's still
nothing.
under the same Mass DEP wetland file number, right?
I guess I don't. I'd have to look at that enforcement order, but
Because I feel like if it is under the same DEP file number, we need to close that maybe before
yeah.
we can issue a COC.
Let's say it was revoked the enforcement order issued to DP number 1680321.
But the new one, does that reference the file number?
Not in the motion, at least.
Mm. Yeah, I was gonna look request to amend.
We could ask Mark Stinson if that's an administrative issue.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird.
Yeah,
Mitch, do you know where the new enforcement order, a copy of that is? I mean,
No, I have to find. I mean, if it's associated with the mitigation at Highland Park and not this area, then maybe we wouldn't need
maybe it's
to
under,
do anything.
yeah. I was gonna see if I could find it.
Except that it was part of the order of conditions for them to provide mitigation because of the amount of, I think trees that they took down or whatever that they had to, I mean, not the
Right.
trees, but the
Yeah, the riverfront.
riverfront, yeah.
The other part of that motion was, was an amendment to the order conditions where that was removed from the order conditions
Oh,
to remove the requirement to construct and monitor the offsite wetland mitigation area and transfer the requirement to the city.
Basically, we gave them a free pass.
so it
Mhm.
sounds like we need to have the applicant come back with additional information on the plantings. And two, do we need to look into administratively whether we can close this, or did we already decide that we don't need to?
I mean, it sounds like we don't need to. It sounds like, I mean, we could look into it, but to me, it sounds like it wouldn't be necessary. But since we're gonna ask them to come back next time anyway, we could look into it, between this meeting and next meeting and make sure. And hopefully we can find, find a copy of that enforcement order to the city for that and see how that references the project.
This is kind of funky. Mark Stinson might be a good reference if we have to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does anyone else have any thoughts or comments before we? I think so administratively for tonight, Mitch, do you remember for a certificate of compliance, we have to respond within a certain amount of time, right?
Oh, yeah, there's like a 21-day window, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what I'm double checking right now.
I don't know if you can continue that. Like,
And it's not like it's
it's
not a
not
meeting.
it's not a hearing. Yeah, it's not a hearing or anything.
I mean, could always deny it for lack of info and then just pick it up in the next one.
Do they have to pay anything?
No, no.
It would just be
There's no
submitting
legal
the
ad
form.
or
And Mitch, do you know the date that that was submitted? I assume that our next meeting would be longer than 21 days.
Yeah, I think we'd be over that.
I was trying to remember what we've done in the past because I know we've had at least one or two that I remember that we didn't have enough information on. And I don't remember how we did that. I guess the easiest thing is to, if we felt like we didn't have enough information tonight, as Mitch said, we could vote to deny it and then they could just submit it again with the new information. And that's not like our vote to deny it doesn't get recorded anywhere, so it's not going to be like a strike against them, or anything.
Yeah, just made sure it is. You do need to reply within 21 days.
Yeah. Does that make sense to everyone? That process? And would anyone like to motion?
What are we motioning for? Sorry, go ahead, Erica. You know what you're doing.
No, all right. Make a motion to deny the request for the certificate of compliance for the property at Greenfield Street. Not sure what the number is. I don't have the
And
DP number.
DEP file number 1680321.
I'll second.
For lack of information.
Pending further information. Yeah, okay. Second that.
Yeah, so they'll just resubmit with the extra information. All right, any discussion before we vote on that? All right, so we would vote on denying the certificate of compliance for lack of information for tonight. Elizabeth,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Emily.
Aye.
All right, and I am also an aye. So again, thank you all for being here, and thanks for being willing to look into those plantings and stuff. And I guess we'll probably see you at the next meeting if you get it done by then, or
Okay.
maybe the one
See you
after
then.
that.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks,
Home,
guys.
home stretch,
Thanks.
guys. Home stretch.
Almost there.
Say that now.
Good to see everybody. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's good to see ya.
Great. So next on the agenda is something that I asked to be on the agenda. I'm trying to get some things going here. So there's a property I heard about, this Stone Farm Lane. Share this. It's a property that's for sale that like a land trust group is. Oh, I didn't mean to click. Hold on. Like a land trust group is planning to buy, and then they're going to lease it to some people who are going to build like affordable housing. And I just contacted them because I was like, Stone Farm Lane, that's
Yeah.
right next
Mm.
to Stone Ridge. So it's this parcel.
Mhm.
And it's right next to this Stone Ridge Lane parcel. And if you look at OpenStreetMap, there's actually a trail that cuts in to that property. So I contacted them and I was like, oh, it would be great to get that trail preserved and maybe do like a conservation restriction, or
Yeah.
maybe the city would want to buy some of it, or you could donate it to the city, or so nothing is like happening yet, but they seem like that is something that they would want to do, is to like preserve public access to that trail. So I just wanted to bring it up to let people know that that's a thing. And I looped Emily in on that. And the people had sent me an email, and I was like, well, I can't speak for any. They're like, what would the city want to do? And I was like, well, I can't speak for anyone yet. Like, I haven't even talked about this in a meeting yet. But just throwing out ideas that I had. And so I'm not sure if they're gonna maybe that I don't even think they bought the property yet, but they were like under contract to buy it by the end of the month. So
Um,
yeah,
just a thought. So I'm assuming that parcel is mapped for priority and estimated habitat.
probably.
And if they did want to do an aggressive development, I know 40Bs get some regulatory exemptions, but it's very possible they'll need a conservation and management permit under the Mass Endangered Species Act, which
Mm,
means they'll have to donate a significant chunk of the land for conservation purposes as part of the net benefit package. So coordinating early with the Concom is a really good way of meeting that performance standard under the Mass Endangered Species Act. So,
mhm.
I mean, I'm jumping way ahead, and I'm really glad, Emily, we have you on our team because I know that you're more experienced than the rest of us in land conservation stuff. I mostly only work with land conservation under conservation and management permits under MISA. So, but I think that there's, depending on how heritage rules, a potential that they could mandate they
Mm,
have to meet a net benefit to the species, which could require conservation of open space. So
mhm.
awesome
And
job, Travis, getting in
yeah,
front of that.
and I do know that most of they're actually planning on doing a fairly small footprint, and like as far away from like the main building that they want to do is like up here. Um, so like further from the river and leaving most of it natural. I went to a presentation that they did about it, so I learned all about it.
Yeah, I don't know how can you turn on your Pri-Hab and estimated hab? It's under conservation. If you go into
Mm,
conservation slash recreation, yeah, that guy, go into yeah, natural heritage and then estimated and Pri-Hab.
mm,
And then for some reason you gotta like slide estimated over priority habitat, because it's like, I don't know why they make the diagonals go in the same direction. They should go in the opposite direction, so it's easy to
mm.
overlay them, but
Yeah, it looks like there's
oh, can you
might
turn
not.
off? Oh, okay, so they're both there.
It looks like estimated.
So it's just Pri-Hab?
Yeah, there's a
That means
tiny bit estimated right
that
there.
means it's a plant. So if it's just Pri-Hab, that means it's a plant. Which means they could avoid it. Darn it, because it's easier if it was an animal. Um, because that
Yeah,
means
I
they
don't
can just do a
know.
survey, and if the plant isn't there, it's not an issue. But there are a number of rare plants up on the ridge, so,
There's a certified vernal pool right here too.
and that's not estimated or priority habitat.
No, it looks like it's excluded.
So it's an upland plant. We're sleuthing this out here. I know
Yeah,
there's like 17 listed plants up there, so I mean, could be anything, but it's interesting. I think it'd be cool to like kind of follow that permitting process.
yeah, and I know they said that there was a previous like subdivision plan, but that was like it went through all the approvals and everything, but they're not following that plan and it's like not valid anymore anyway. So
I wonder
um
why, if it's from planning board or from like a state agency.
I think yeah, I mean I think it was old, like I don't know if they have an expiration date or whatever, but I don't know I don't know how those work.
Um, if you can find out who the review biologist is at Natural Heritage, we could like coordinate
Mm,
high level, you know, not
mhm.
nefariously, obviously, but like just
Yeah.
high level. Like if the client is interested or the applicant is interested in um providing a net benefit to the species under MISA via conservation land, the commission would be interested. Just that's it. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
just leave it at that. But
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, right now I don't think they've even like completed the purchase of the property yet. So I think they were planning on starting building like within the next couple of years.
mm,
Um, so it might be a little while, but just
it's
wanted to, that's another good trailhead. I did drive down here and I saw, I mean, it's not like a great, you can barely see it, but
Hmm.
there is an obvious trail um, that comes through there. I don't know why it's marked with this. I don't know what this symbol means on OpenStreetMap, but
Hmm.
yeah. And then I guess while we're here, I forgot to ask Mitch to add this to the agenda, but just an update on the Stone Ridge Lane parcel. Um, I had a meeting with the mayor and Christie, and nothing's like definitely decided yet, but it sounds like the mayor is leaning towards making it recreation land. But at my suggestion, with a condition that it be managed as only passive recreation on the parcel. And kind of the main reason for it being recreation land is that um, Community Preservation Act funding can be used on that parcel if it's recreation, but not if it's conservation land, unless CPA money was used to preserve it. And there isn't any money needed at this point. It just needs to be transferred. And the city already
Mm.
owns it. It just needs to be like transferred to Recreation Department or transferred to the Conservation Commission.
what
So,
would the difference between conservation land and passive recreation land use mean?
well, if it was conservation land, it could only be used for passive recreation. So essentially, it would be under the Parks Department, but managed as conservation land is.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's kind of
Mhm.
like a weird, you know,
Yeah.
compromise, I guess. But that
And
would protect it from. That would mean that they couldn't build like any playgrounds or like
yeah,
soccer
Mhm.
fields or anything like that.
gotcha.
So, but I mean, and part of the reason with the CPA thing is that um, the recreation department already has some CPA money for doing um, installing trail signs like throughout the whole ridge. And so that would enable them to use that money on trail signs for this property too. And then Christy, she's told me that once they get to where they're trying to decide what the signage is, then she'll like loop us in on that because they wouldn't be able to spend any CPA money on signs for this parcel because it's conservation land. So either we could, get money to do that, or we could use the conservation trust fund or try to get money from city council transferred into that fund so that we could do that. But if we, coordinated on like what the design is and you know how that would work. Um, so that's an update on that. So, sharing. I don't remember what was next on the agenda here. Oh yeah, I asked Mitch to give us an update on conservation land boundary markings, just so we can kind of see how that's going. I know he's been kind of doing that off and on. And I went out and helped him one time.
Yeah, so under conservation land mapping project, I've just been keeping track under this Excel sheet. So got a few of them done, just chipping away at it.
Cool.
Got some of the big ones left,
Hmm.
but weather's getting nice, so should be able to keep going with that. And then I don't know if we have a decision on Green River Conservation Land, if anyone's able to go out and look at the trail or made a decision. That's the one with the erosion.
Yeah. I went out and looked at it. Did we ever do a group meeting? I know I missed it because I had my parents visiting and
At the last meeting, we said we would try to go out individually because it was difficult trying to schedule a group meeting. I'll be honest, I didn't go out.
I
I'm
haven't made out
sorry.
either.
And
Somebody else.
I'm very familiar with that area and the erosion is definitely really sketchy, but it looks like at least in one area, people are forging a new trail and they've already kind of abandoned. There's a really big, I forget what tree it is, probably a silver maple. And instead of going to the west, they're going to the east around that tree. I
Do you
don't know.
think that we need anything out there, like a sign to, I don't know, direct people a certain way, or do you think it's kind of working itself out, or I don't know.
I think it's fragile. I'm more worried about people just being reckless and exasperating the erosion than being a real hazard.
Hmm.
I think it's pretty obvious. I don't think toddlers are gonna fall down.
Maybe
God,
even
I hope
like
not. Anyways, I hope
just something like that on a tree,
yeah.
maybe.
That would be good. I mean, you could probably just, if we want to have it temporarily, you maybe like print it out and laminate it or something.
What is our liability again? If it's
I think it's as long as as long as it's like open to the public and we're not charging a fee and we aren't like building structures that, are dangerous, then there's basically not much liability.
gotcha. That's right. We're not charging a fee. We're not profiting from it. Okay.
And we're not like building some big lookout tower that someone's going to fall off of or something.
Gotcha. Okay.
But still good to warn people that there's a cliff
Mhm.
there, whether we're liable,
True.
financially liable or not.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, do people think we like get a metal sign of this and have it like permanently out there, or maybe
Like
like
a trail
a
closed sign.
kind of, yeah, or
Yeah.
like this steep warning, steep drop, just to let people make sure they're aware.
is there any chance of any kind of mitigation of the erosion, or is it gonna be? It's basically perfect. Be permanent, like. I guess.
I don't know, Kristen, you're the one who's the
I don't
best
see how it
person.
can be mitigated, honestly.
Yeah,
Like, it's like, so you go
That's-
back behind Murphy's Field, and then that trail goes in through the woods. And then you kind of like meander for a second, and then there's just a super sheer drop on your right. And then it
Mhm.
kind of it's always been a steep slope down to the river, and people go down swimming down there and stuff.
I went there years and years ago, but it was not. It was steep and it was narrow, but it was not falling apart.
Yeah, that I know, me too. Even just like last year, there was always the trail was always steep, but there was never that sheer cliff on your right when you're going down to the river. That's
Mhm.
pretty new. But it is really sandy and alluvial. It's just loose. And I think that a tree or two fell and it just ripped the hill out, and that's just where we're
Mm,
at.
mm.
I don't see how we can mitigate it. I mean, it's super
So,
traffic there.
right. So some permanent sign is probably.
Yeah.
mm,
Other than like a trail closed sign and just let people bushwhack and make their own trail, which they're gonna do anyway. And a warning sign. I don't see what we could do.
Yeah. Mitch, do you think you could look into just like how much that would cost, or maybe you already have? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just looking at um like just steep drop off signs. I'm seeing you could probably get one for like $10.
Hmm.
Okay. I
You want me
mean,
to I just order and then vote to reimburse, or we could look at
yeah,
some.
I think um, I think that's probably the way to do it. I think we would get the invoice and then we would vote to pay the invoice. We could use the conservation trust fund. And then I think the city finance department could pay the invoice from that fund. I think that's how it would work. I
Yeah,
don't
I would
know.
just
You
fill
could
out the
probably,
reimbursement form and just put that
okay.
account number on. So
Yeah, yeah.
pretty easy.
That seems easier. Is everybody fine if he goes ahead and gets one or more? Do people think we need more than one? Kristen, do you think just one's good or
Yeah, I mean, like outside of caution tape, which is not gonna last, I feel like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's not that big of an area.
Mhm.
It is a steep drop, but
Yeah. All right. One sign.
yeah, maybe
Sounds
like up
good.
at the trailhead, like from Murphy's Field, because people are mostly come from up to down versus down to up, I think, from that
Mm,
direction. Because if you're coming from the 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 swimming pool, you're probably walking the low trail.
mm,
You're only walking the high trail down to the river if you're going from Murphy's Field. So that makes sense.
yeah. I mean, I guess, but the fact that you just said that made me think, well, maybe we should just get two and just have
Mm,
one facing each way, just, I mean, why not if they're $10 or whatever,
yeah.
it
There's
wouldn't
all
hurt.
those handmade signs for all the native plants out there.
Yeah.
It's
Does
just
someone want to volunteer to make a handmade sign?
pound that site with signs.
I don't have any sign making tools. All right. So two signs sounds like.
Do we need to
That's
like motion on this or?
I think when we would motion to spend the money for the reimbursement.
Okay.
Yeah. And because I'll say like in with the CPC, a lot of times Christian, who's the staff contact for that body, he'll buy things and then come to the meeting and say, "Oh, can you guys vote to reimburse this?" So
Gotcha.
that's usually how that works. All right. Let me get back to my agenda here. Any topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of the posting of this agenda? One topic, I guess I was just going to ask Emily. I saw there was an email about the open space committee that's about to start meeting, and I don't know if you just want to briefly say like when you guys will be meeting, and then you could give some updates after that, the following meeting.
Sounds good. I'm looking at the date. The third Thursday of the month is the day so far that we're going to be meeting. So June 20th, 4:45, and then July 18th are the two on the books, and then we'll sort of see if that's working for people, I think. And it'll be either Zoom or hybrid. So I'll bring back, description of who's involved and what the structure is and what the goals are. And I'm excited to get involved with that.
Yeah, cool. Mitch, do you think you could put just like, update from open space committee? I mean, we could kind of keep that as like a standing agenda item and then, you know, that way Emily wouldn't have to ask like, oh, could you add this to the agenda?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Great. Did anyone else have any last minute things come up to talk about? Great. So enforcement updates. I know there was a report of dumping, some kind of chemical dumping. I don't know. Mitch, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I just got a kind of anonymous call about, he said, sub pump taking toxic water, copper, mercury, iron particles dumping over the tracks from a hose and possibly seeping into the Deerfield River.
Did you call Mass DEP, EPA?
No, I guess I just wanted to see what we thought. Should we escalate it, you think?
Hell
'Cause
yeah.
usually, I'd do a site visit, but it just seems like a big site, and if I ask for a
Yeah.
site visit, then they're not going to be doing it when I'm there.
Yeah.
It's not going to be something that's,
Mm.
obvious and something that's still there when I would go there.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, that was my first thought too, is that this kind of seems like more of a DEP responsibility than Conservation Commission responsibility. Like a point source
EPA even, like
pollution discharge.
state and federal. That sounds really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was my first thought, was send it along to DEP.
They have enforcement capability, like police, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just a volunteer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so scary.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's interesting. They said it went over the railroad tracks, so that would be like the parcel to the south then.
Yeah, so is there any like further information other than what you've
Mhm.
already presented on this? Because this, like who's, I guess my question is, who's reporting and how do they know that there's toxic water with copper, mercury, and iron particles going into the river and over
Hmm.
the tracks? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
this is all I have. It was a quick call. I guess I don't want to say, I don't want to like out him or
well, I
anything.
mean, I assume you can't
Yeah.
tell me who, but like the authority that the person might have to know such things.
Or were
That's
they
a
just assuming maybe they were just assuming that was what was in there?
Yeah, it's a valid comment, Liz, because like maybe it's got, red water, which just could be oxidized. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still think that could be DEP could go and collect some samples and
Sure.
figure out if that's what it actually is.
and it's a federal waterway too. That's a navigable waterway. So that's Clean Water Act jurisdiction. That's EPA. So that's
Yeah,
not just DEP, that's EPA.
true.
Any illicit discharge into a navigable waterway is going to be DEP and EPA.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually, he sent it to DPW, who sent it my way, but yeah, probably above our pay grade here.
Who owns the
Yeah.
parcel? And like, is
It's
somebody
that
trespassing on that parcel? And like,
well the parcel, I mean, that parcel is like a metal recycling facility, and then
Mm.
to the
oh,
south, I looked online, and the one to the south over the railroad is just owned by the railroad,
mm.
um, out down to the river to the south.
So
So
this is Cheapside, right?
yeah, Cheapside.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's maybe why they're making the assumption, assuming they're making any assumption that it's
Mm.
Because
metals. but-
there's like
yeah.
a auto salvage over there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's on the other side of the road.
Well, I think like we've said, I think it's a little above our pay grade, and I guess Mitch, if you could um send that along to DEP and EPA. Maybe just like right. I don't know the best way to do that.
I think
I
that there's a
like phone line or something.
yeah, I think that there's like a way to notify both agencies of like anonymous tips. I don't really
Hmm.
know how to do it, but I think that if you see a pollutant, like say somebody's dumping something over the side of the road and into a river, like on a bridge, think
Hmm.
you know, there's a way to report that. I don't really know how to do it, but I'm sure if you go on their websites.
Yeah, I'm looking at mass.gov website for filing an environmental complaint. There's a lot of stuff. Pollution, discharges to water or ground. Contact Mass DEP. Oh yeah, here I'll send. Hold on. So Mitch, I guess if you could fill out this form, I went through the chain of what to do for a water discharge, and this is the website mass.gov/form/environmental complaint form. And you know
Oh,
where
perfect.
it happened, what's happening, when did it happen.
Do we have any evidence? Do we have any photos or
I
contact information, or is this
didn't
all
sound like
names?
it.
Okay.
But I think if we, if we just submit it and say, the Conservation Commission received an
Yeah.
anonymous complaint.
That carries weight. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if would it make sense to send this to the person that gave me the complaint? I don't know if I'll
That
have
that
all this
might be
information.
easier. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would ask them if they can do this, and then if they decline to do it, maybe go ahead and do it for them. Or if they're like, oh, this is too complicated, I don't know how to do that. Maybe fill it out for them, and just say that we received a complaint. But yeah, I think that makes sense. If they're the ones who saw it, it might carry more weight. They might be able to explain a little better what they saw.
Right.
I agree. We're just a third party here. Yeah.
Do you need me to send you this link?
I should be able to find that.
Okay, I'll just put it in chat and you can, just so people know, I'm just copying and pasting that link that we already saw in chat. All right, Mitch, were there any other enforcement updates?
I think that's it. I mean, I don't know if we
Project?
want to. We didn't really set any deadlines for that tree removal. We're just kind of waiting on his application, I guess. But I just know it's good to set deadlines.
Yeah, I guess I couldn't remember. I think we set a deadline and then he came back and talked to us, and then yeah, I couldn't remember if we did set another deadline or not.
No, I don't think we did.
No. Does everyone remember what we're talking about? There was a unauthorized Oak Hill Road, unauthorized tree cutting
Oh,
in
yeah.
riverfront area.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then he was talking about he was gonna be submitting or trying to build and he was gonna be submitting some information.
I think having a date would be good.
What do we feel like would be a,
How long
I
has this
mean,
been circulating?
well, I think what we this isn't answering your question, but I think what I remember from last time, Mitch, is this right? That he was going to, like, the area he cut down, he was hoping to like build things there anyway, and so he was going to submit an NOI and
Yeah,
include that cutting as like part of the plan.
or yeah, or address the mitigation through that.
Yeah,
I guess.
or
Right.
address the mitigation through that. I mean,
But I
so
guess, you know,
so I
I was
think
gonna
I
say,
think what
but you know,
yeah, I think what we were saying was that, yeah, if you're going to submit an NOI and you think that could be included, then you can do that. So I don't know if I don't know what we're asking him to do by a date. Like, I don't think we would say submit an NOI by this date, but maybe we could say, either
Well, is there an open enforcement order right now?
no, we never did an enforcement order.
So I think we could say maybe something along the lines of like, submit a mitigation plan or permit, or we will issue you an enforcement order by X date,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I
I
why
think
did
that makes
we
sense.
issue an enforcement order?
Well, I think we were trying to be nice about it. And he wanted to have like a wetland scientist go out there. And so,
Gotcha, okay, thanks for reminding me.
yeah.
And this is intermittent stream? So it's just city ordinance only, not Wetlands Protection Act?
No, it is perennial.
I mean,
a-
the DEP might issue an enforcement order as well, like, they might issue an administrative order, I should say.
Mm,
If it's state regulated, like, that may be beyond us. If it's egregious enough, they might wanna do an ACOP. An administrative consent order.
yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense to set a date, like you're saying. I guess I was trying to look at the calendar and see what we thought might be reasonable. Like, if he is working on an NOI, I don't know. I mean, I
How
want
long
to
has
keep
this been? When did we first hear about this? I feel like it was February.
something like that.
So it's been several months. It's not like if we said
Yeah.
by July 20 or 30th or whatever, like, that wouldn't be
July.
unreasonable.
Yeah, July 23rd. That would be
23rd,
our
yeah.
meeting for our second meeting that month.
Like, have a mitigation plan or, come to a meeting. I don't know, I've come to a meeting and present, I don't know, even if we said like, come in 2 weeks from today and present your proposal, like, are you gonna do mitigation? Are you gonna do a permit? I don't know, has he been to a meeting? Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the
Yeah.
minutes from the meeting that it was April 23rd, looks like was the last time we had Oak Hill Road on the agenda. The blurb is short. Basically, he said he does not object to planting trees. He has preliminary plans for the housing development, although there are wetlands and streams in the area. And then we suggested that he hire a consultant to delineate those wetlands that he argued were not wetlands.
Maybe we could ask him to come to a meeting and present where he's at with his proposal, and if at that meeting he's like still hemming and hawing, we could discuss an enforcement order. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't really laid out, it doesn't seem like we've laid out a plan for the thing that we want him to do in order for us to enforce it, really. It seems like we've sort of said, hey, you got to do something about that. Planting some trees would be great, but I don't think there was any official like document or, we'd like you to place X number of trees in this area and have them be of these genus or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was
Yeah.
a plan per se. It was like, you've got to do something about this, and planting some trees is what you've got to do. And that was kind of as far as it went. So it doesn't really seem like there's a lot to enforce at the moment. And so maybe making it clear what has to be done would be the
Yeah.
next step.
Yeah, and that is something that another way we could have gone about this was when we first heard about what happened, we could have immediately issued an enforcement order and said, as part of the order, you must, submit a plan to remediate this through planting of trees by X date. So we could have done it that way.
Yeah.
But I think we had all agreed that we were going to take the let's be nice path, if you will, for lack of a better way of phrasing that,
Yeah.
which I think was correct at the time. I just feel like we haven't necessarily received the response from the person that we had hoped based on the neighborly conduct of the commission. So at this point, can we issue the
I mean, I think we could issue an enforcement order at any time if we wanted to, but he might feel a little blindsided by it if we don't give him a warning of like, do this first, or
well, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying is like, do
yeah.
we have that document that like, please do this next, otherwise we will do X.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Did we say in some kind of correspondence, Mitch, that like, if you don't attend the next meeting and present your plan, we will issue an enforcement order, like some kind of like strongly worded, we don't want to do this, but we will if we have to, kind of thing.
I don't think we've done that at all.
No, I think where we left it was, yeah, just he's
Maybe
working on
that's
his plan.
maybe that's where we're at. And I think that that's a pretty common like
Escalation.
letter from agents, like, hey, we haven't heard from you in X number of months. We were really hoping to resolve this amicably, but given your lack of response, we're hoping that you can attend our next hearing on June 25th and present what your plan is. And if you don't, convince us, I don't know how to word that, but I'm sure you can think of something that's like, we will be issuing a legal enforcement order if we aren't convinced that this will be resolved timely or something. I don't know how to word that. I'm not an agent, but I'm sure you can figure something out. I don't know. Does that make sense, guys?
That makes sense to me. I mean, do we want to give him more than one meeting just in case like he
Yeah.
literally can't make that meeting for some reason?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
And
I
like,
mean,
maybe make it even the language a little bit stronger that this is not just a city ordinance issue. It is a state regulated resource, and we could invite the DEP to weigh in on this. This could be, the DEP could want to issue an administrative order. Like, this isn't just the city. If that is
I
true.
think what I recall was that he kept asserting that it was a drainage ditch.
a ditch.
Definitely
Right.
felt
Right.
that it was not perennial.
Kristen
So
did a really nice
that was-
job of setting him straight on that.
I mean, put it this
Yeah.
way, Mitch, attach a USGS topographic map. If there's a solid blue line on that USGS topographic map and cite, 10.58, 310 CMR, 10.58, whatever. If it's there, it's there. It's there. It's there. It's, it's there.
I think I sort of remember that where we left it for him was that if he was trying to say that it wasn't the case, that he needed to, have a wetlands delineator or
Yeah.
someone fight
Yeah.
that USGS map, which, obviously isn't going to happen. But I feel like that's where some of maybe the unclarity came from, because he was definitely operating thinking that it didn't apply to him.
Yeah.
And then there wasn't really like come back to us by X date with a report, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point, both you guys, Emily and Liz, that we didn't really like set a clear path forward with like clear, consequences.
May I suggest?
Yeah.
Perhaps the course of action would be to contact the person whose name is gone.
Yeah, I don't remember
Brain
it.
right now.
Jeff Brusco.
And request, yes, thank you, Jeff. And request an update, and see, did you have an opportunity to contract a wetlands
Yeah.
specialist? Because that was
Mhm.
something we clearly stated. And whether or not that has occurred, have you done any of the other things that we talked about, i.e. planting trees since then? If none of those things have occurred, then it seems to me that we should mandate whatever framework that is within the construct of the commission, mandate that you get yourself a wetland scientist, because there are in fact wetlands all over that property, not just the drainage ditch. Air quotes around that. I realized that on the video I made. Not a drainage ditch. So if he has not contracted a wetland scientist and has not taken any action to replant any of the trees within that that buffer zone, then A, we will mandate that he does indeed contract a wetland scientist, and B, will plant whatever the commission deems appropriate in terms of reforestation of that space that he wiped clean.
Could I
And I
also,
guess-
sorry, one
Go
thing,
ahead.
Travis, like I like what you're saying there, Liz, like the replanting plan or an alternate mitigation plan as proposed by your consultant. You know, so that way it leaves a little bit more open to flexibility, but you know, it's not like we're saying this is what you have to do. We were open to like an alternative,
Right.
but like
Mhm.
But I
probably
think
that's
the
what we
two
want.
pieces start out with a check-in and allow him the opportunity to say, oh yeah, I totally did that.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Travis, I interrupted.
So
Or to come back with like, oh yeah, my NOI is ready to present, you know, or something, but I doubt it.
Yeah, me too.
So-
But at least like give him the latitude
yeah.
to show perhaps he's done better than we might have expected.
So it sounds like, I mean, that's it. So it sort of sounds like what you're going back to is what Kristen said, which is ask him to come to a meeting to talk about that, right? Or are you saying that he could submit that in writing or whatever?
I think we should
Um,
require him to come to a meeting. And if he doesn't, then we'll issue an
Issue.
enforcement order. And have it very strongly worded, and that not just that we'll issue an enforcement order, but that we will also invite the Mass DEP to consider whether they want to issue an administrative order. I think it should be a scary letter. I mean, we've been really flexible. I think that it's time to step up the language
Yeah.
a little bit. I mean, we don't have to do anything about it, but I think we should make a scary letter. And
But- and
again,
maybe-
that's not uncommon for agents to issue
Yeah.
to landowners. We want to scare them, so they come to a meeting and they want to act right.
Yeah,
Straighten it
Erica?
out before there's any actual enforcement. Sorry, Erica.
No, that's okay. That's all right. No, I was just gonna say, and maybe like in that letter, but state exactly what we're gonna be asking him, so that, you know, if we're not gonna ask him to come for like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe he can hire somebody right now, quick, you know, before, you know, but tell him this is what we're gonna want to know. Be prepared to tell us, show us.
I think
Yeah,
that's
maybe we could
a
even
good
say,
point.
come to a meeting on X date, and by X date, like 3 months later, have a mitigation plan proposed or something like that.
I think both of these things sound good. I have reservations based on personality types around going in with the strongly worded letter yet. I feel like just based on what I have observed of this individual, that giving them the opportunity as Erica has defined it might be more productive at this point than going in with the strongly worded enforcement. It seems like, again, I don't think it was as clearly laid out timeline wise.
That's true.
For him to have like guardrails to keep him in line. And I think that, as Erica mentioned, I think those guardrails would be far more helpful at this particular point in time. And if those guardrails then get jumped, then, you know, then we go in with that strongly worded letter. But I feel like particular individual is not going to respond productively to a strongly worded letter right now.
So Elizabeth, are you suggesting that Mitch just like give him a call and mention that we want to see these things? And
Hey, we talked about this in April. We haven't heard from you. What's the status? Please be prepared to come to 2 meetings forward from now to give us an update with, you know, as Erica suggested, did you do
Yeah.
X, Y, or Z?
yeah,
And
I-
I actually think a letter, just so that there's gonna start to be a
Official.
paper trail,
Mhm.
Yeah,
rather than a phone call, because who can say, well, you didn't tell me that, you know?
It could be a phone call and you know, oh, and by the way, I'll send you this in a letter too, so you'll have it in written,
Right.
you know. So for inviting uh having him required to come to a
Testing.
meeting to talk about it. What do we think? Like, do we think July? I mean, our two meetings in July are July 9th and the 23rd. The 9th would be less than a
Well,
month from now.
if we went with the 23rd, we could say, you know, we want you to come and we want, at that meeting, we want to hear that you
Yeah,
have a wetland scientist and you know, or you have a
yeah,
plan, or you have, and that way, if he hasn't, he can sort of scramble and, you know,
yeah,
a little bit. I mean, I know wetland scientists are really busy, so they can't just drop their hat and
yeah,
but we could
come out
have
and do his
like,
property.
we could have, you know, like, I don't know, I'm trying to dig up a letter from an agent really quick in my project files that like somebody built a deck. This isn't even that bad. They built a deck in Riverfront and they got a really strongly worded letter. Trying to find that letter from the agent. And it had like, you know, by this date have a plan, and by this date, you know,
yeah.
present that plan kind of thing. So it's not like,
Well, I think that's what we're saying would be for the 23rd. Have to he would have to present on either being done with replanting the trees, submit, you know, an update or submit a remediation plan um or show how he's doing the remediation through permitting.
or you know, prove that he's you know, contacted and is employing a wetland scientist, whether they've had a chance to get out there right then, but at least, you know,
Yeah.
if one
I
is
guess
under
my
contract.
yeah, my only hesitation with the wetland scientist part is that if he did just go out and like replant all the trees that we like, he wouldn't have to have a wetland scientist, you know. So it's like kind of an either or thing. Like if he is going through with the
Yeah,
permitting,
but it sounds like
um,
he really wants to build there, and he's gonna have to get those wetlands
yeah.
delineated, so.
But I mean, that would be part of the show us the remediation through permitting through the
Right,
permitting process. And I mean, if he comes through with an NOI and no wetlands delineated or anything, then we're just gonna
right.
reject it. And you know, so I guess I'm a little hesitant to like tell someone they need to employ someone
yeah,
Okay, yeah,
when really that's not what we're trying to get. We're trying to get the
good,
remediation, and
yeah,
if he feels like he needs to hire someone to do that, then
Right. I mean, that's a really good point.
okay.
He's talked about how he wants to put in a 55 plus
Mhm.
housing development. He hasn't
yeah,
done anything other than take down the trees within the buffer zone.
riverfront area.
The riverfront, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
So it seems like that's the thing that really requires the most attention.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for
And then
right
eventually, of
now,
course, if he actually goes through with trying to build
yeah,
anything, that's a whole other, that maybe that's separate, and
Right.
maybe makes this whole process easier, is we don't actually have to deal with that piece just yet.
Right, okay. I
yeah, I
think we were talking
mean,
about the wetland scientists to try to get them to reiterate that is, you know, the stream was actually there.
yeah. Well,
It was not a ditch,
that's what he said
you
he
know,
wanted to do. Like
right,
if he wants to do that, that's fine. I mean, he
right.
could just listen to us and you know, we can explain to him
Save
why it
some
is
money.
there.
It's there.
I mean, if he wants to hire someone to reiterate it, that's fine. Um,
And does anyone
but I
feel
mean,
like leaving the trees cleared is even permittable? Like, I don't know what the pathway would that be.
the only thing I could think is if he is going to be building in Riverfront there's like a certain amount of disturbance that can happen. And so if where those trees were taken down was, part of that percent that is allowed to be disturbed and, was like approved through a plan,
Mm.
that it could, I think it could.
You get like 10%.
Something like that. I mean,
So
I'm just imagining like if he came before us with a riverfront project, uh, we might approve a project where some trees get cut down in the riverfront area.
Mhm.
But it would be up to, you know, whatever his application is to show that that's
Yeah,
an approvable
I mean,
thing.
clearing that whole area or leaving it cleared is, 100% of the riverfront on the parcel.
Oh, that was like the only riverfront on that parcel was where the
Right.
trees were removed. Well, I guess, I mean, maybe if he did do some permitting, it would, he said he's not opposed to planting trees. Maybe part of that would be planting trees in riverfront where those trees were cut down. That would also be allowable. But
yeah, I think like bottom line is we need to see some sort of mitigation.
Yeah.
yeah. So it sounds like he needs to come to a meeting by July 23rd at the latest. And have either show that the trees have been replanted or show the plan he's going to be following for remediation. And then I think we're leaving it implied that there may be some enforcement if that doesn't happen.
Mhm.
And then maybe Mitch, if you could give him a call and just tell him that he needs to come to a meeting by then and show us that, um, and then just send it to him in a letter too, so we have a letter copy.
Okay. Yeah, sounds
And
good.
then if he doesn't show up at a meeting, then we can vote to do an enforcement order.
Mhm. Well, I was gonna say maybe in the letter, maybe not when you're talking to him, maybe the letter just sort of sneak in the part like if we don't, instead before we have to go on to further measures, something like that,
Yeah,
Not saying we're gonna, but before we're gonna have to go on, because I like both of your points. I mean, we don't want to antagonize him, but we also want to make sure he understands that he's got to do something, or there's going to be consequences. So.
Yeah. And Mitch, if you want a second set of eyes on the letter, feel free to send it to me, and
Sure. Yep, will do.
we can come up with something. All right, is everybody good with that?
yeah.
Okay. Then next time, Kristen, if if we're
Well,
not
I'm trying to
happy,
find that letter, but
Well,
I
that's
think it's by their last name, not the town names. I
Mm.
can't find it off the top of my head, but it
Mhm.
was like really delicately worded and it was sufficiently frightening without being threatening.
And I think that could have been good at the beginning. Like I think we're a little,
Yeah,
we got to dig ourselves out of a hole of goodwill that we've put out, but maybe not received.
what's the total acreage of the clearing again? Is it like really small or is it pretty significant? I can't remember.
I feel like it's like 5,000 square feet.
Okay, so not really small.
I was trying to find. I found the folder. Wetland.
Yeah, my stuff's not loading.
Yeah, I guess the map doesn't show. Here's a picture.
But was it just the things that kind of sort of right along the roadway that was in Riverfront? Was it just that area or was it the whole area?
It was.
I can't remember.
I think this is the blue is the riverfront area, and this red circle is the
Okay.
trees that were cut down in riverfront.
That looks like not a small area.
It's bigger
do we
than
know
a
how-
house.
House.
How much else did he take down all the rest of those trees, or like did he clear that whole area, or do we know?
Yeah, the whole area is cleared.
This whole area here,
Yeah,
Oh, crap.
but that
that's
all
just
the
the
rest
area
of
that's
it's
in
out of
Riverfront.
jurisdiction.
Right, it's not, but I just wondered,
Oh.
just wondered how much he was clearing.
Okay. I think that what were we looking at on our agenda here? So that was enforcement updates. Mitch, are there any other project monitoring, site visit scheduling, or anything?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Anyone else have anything last minute before we adjourn? Anyone want a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn that was seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Hi.
All right, that is unanimous. We're adjourned at 8:08 p.m.